Welcome to a Wonder Junkie podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Anderson.
Nobody knows what's going on. Nobody knows. Nobody has the faintest idea. The best guesses are lies. You may be sure of it.
All right, Dr. Gábor, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I discovered some of your work a couple months ago, actually, so I'm very new to it. I started diving into it online, and then I saw you've written a couple books about the subject of deuterium to help with cancer, deuterium depleted water, and I'd like to get into some of this because I've been a first responder for 19 years, and we obviously have a very high rate of cancer in our industry. And also just the culture at large, we've been seeing such big epidemics of increase of cancer. So I thought it was a very important subject, and I wanted to learn from you in real time and share your message with other people. So,
thank you. Yeah, the bad news, I just recently read a paper, the cancer, that they prognosed by 2050, 80% will increase the cancer among men, and with 100% the deaths caused by cancer. So no any changes, real changes in cancer cancer therapy.
That's incredible. And what do you, right off the bat, what do you think the increase is from, if you could point at some of the factors?
Of course, there are hundreds of reasons, that the lifestyle, the air pollution, the food. Of course, we are focusing on deuterium, and one reason I say that the high incidence of cancer and the high incidence of metabolic disease, there is correlation that the people eat too much sugar. And it means eating too much sugar, burning the sugar in the mitochondria by metabolic water and carbon dioxide, that will produce metabolic water with 150 ppm deuterium. And my grandfather ate lots of bacon, much more fat. And when our mitochondria burn the fat to metabolic water, it will produce 118, 110 ppm deconcentration. So the population in the last 50-60 years, the average D level, how we live during our lifetime, it's much higher than it was 50-70 years ago, or even earlier. And I think that is one reason for the high rate of incidence and the high rate of metabolic disease. So, but the other 100 factors, unfortunately, has a great part to that these numbers are so sad.
Yeah, and I've been hearing a lot of increase in conversation around high-fat diets and more carnivore-based diets being very helpful for getting rid of cancer and preventing cancer even. So I'd love to hear.
When they started that type of study, they didn't know why can be good ketogenic diet to treat cancer. So the connection is eating fat, that finally a deuterium depletion causes a deuterium depletion in the body. So in every day synthesize about 0.3, 0.4 liter metabolic water. And in that water, the hydrogen is coming from the carbon source, which can be carbohydrate, proteins, amino acids, or lipids. And the lipids is very, very deuterium depleted. And that finally give the average D level of the body, depending on the composition of the diet. The more fat, the lower the D level, the more carbohydrate, closer to the 150 ppm, which is not the optimum level for our body and for the metabolism.
And are you able to just give it a little overview of deuterium itself and just describe to me and the audience, people listening, because most people don't know anything about this subject. And when I first discovered your work, it was like a complete, it was brand new information. So I'd love to hear that.
Yeah. So we should go back to the early 70s, when I was very young and with very long hair. So at that time, the Albert Szent-Györgyi, who was one of the Hungarian Nobel laureate, who discovered the vitamin C, he gave an interview and he said, if you want to solve the cancer problem, you have to go sub-molecular level. sub-molecular level. And he argued that it is impossible that the life which is so complex, 20,000 genes, 2,000 different chemical reactions in one single cell, it cannot be organized by huge proteins, because we can react within a couple of seconds or a small part of the seconds when there is some challenges from outside. So he recommended that the reason for the cancer could be some malfunction of the electron transport chain. And he said that should be that submolecular particle of the system. And one couple of weeks, or I don't know, it was in 1976, May 21st, when the idea came to my mind that maybe the proton, the positively charged hydrogen ion, should be that submolecular particle. And I make a note at that day. And 4 years later, I was a student. I wanted to deal with cancer, and so I should become biologist or MD, but I choose the molecular biology. And 4 years later at the university, the other idea came to my mind that there is heavy hydrogen. It is called deuterium with a mass number 2. And then that was in 1980. I was sure that the two hydrogen version, the hydrogen and deuterium together, responsible for cell division and for cancer. And then I graduated in 1982, and I couldn't find a job on a cancer field. So I continue my work on a molecular biology. I cutting the DNA and this kind of thing. And I work for 8 hours on a plant protection institute where I isolated genes responsible for the plant microbe interaction. I spent a year in Germany, half a year 1 year in United States. And when I came back, I quit the job, and finally I could find a job. That was the National Institute of Oncology. I went there because I said, my concept is to investigate the possible role of deuterium in the living organism. So the question is, if the ratio between the hydrogen and deuterium in normal surface water is 6,600 to 1. And I guess that was the reason that was ignored for 60 years. The deuterium was discovered in the early 30s, and after that, lots of study was published using the heavy water in extremely high concentration, the D2O. And we can kill a dog over 35% D2O concentration. But I guess because the ratio is 6,600 to 1, everybody believed, okay, let's ignore it. But if we turned it 150 ppm to millimole concentration, because when you go to the blood control, blood check, and they check the calcium, magnesium, potassium level in your blood, you will find that the calcium is about 2.5 millimole in the blood. Magnesium is about 1.5 millimole in the blood. But the deuterium is 12 millimole. So how can we ignore the deuterium? Its concentration is so relevant. So this is the question that I addressed. What will happen if we reduce the D level? Can we see any changes in the living organism? So at the first time, I prepared deuterium depleted water in my garage, and I brought it to the institute, and I tested what will happen with the cancer cell line if we kept them on deuterium depleted media. And I found that way we can inhibit and slow down the cell growth of the tumor cells. And I also tested what will happen if we slightly increase the D level over the natural level. So not 150, but 300 or 600 ppm. And in that case, I found that stimulated the cell growth. And in the very first paper, we also published the mice study when we transplanted the mice with a human breast cancer tumor. One group of mice consumed normal water, the other deuterium depleted water. And almost all the mice died within 3 months in the control group, but 11 out of 17 was healthy at the end of the study. And it means that somehow the deuterium must be important if we can see so big differences just changing the deconcentration of the drinking water of the mice. So in that very first paper we published in 1993 at the FEPS Letters, we argued that even at the 80s, everybody agreed, independently from me, when a growth hormone binds to the membrane receptor, that stimulate the membrane transport, the sodium-hydrogen membrane transport. It means that the cell transport one hydrogen out of the cell and pick up one sodium. And that causes a pH shift. The pH is slightly increasing. And everybody agreed that this is somehow a signal for the cell. That was necessary to stimulate the cell growth. So we argued that in that system, the transport system will prefer the hydrogen. And so they are picky. They catch the hydrogen, throw it out. That means that the DH ratio is increasing when the sodium-hydrogen transport system is stimulated. And we argue that this is a signal for the cell to trigger the cell division, not the pH shift. So that is when the pH shift is changing, that at the same time, the DH ratio is increasing. And this is the reason that we found that higher D level was used in the media that stimulated the cell growth. So finally, we helped the cells to reach the higher DH ratio. So that was our very first paper. And the question is, so we are not able to regulate the traffic with one lamp. We need a green and we need a red one. So the red lamp is, and the brake system is in the mitochondria. And when we eat the food, we burn it to metabolic water and carbon dioxide. In a healthy cells, everybody knows the mitochondria works perfectly. They are able to produce metabolic water. And that water is deuterium depleted. How depleted? Depending on the diet. People eating too much sugar, they will produce water with close to the 150 ppm. People being on ketogenic diet, that deuterium level is about 130 or 125 ppm. So in a healthy cells, the membrane transport is activated. That can elevate the DH ratio, but the mitochondria producing deuterium depleted metabolic water, so it keeps it at a low level. And these are the healthy cells. But again, it is well known almost 100 years that the only common feature in each cancer cells, the damaged mitochondria. So in a cancer cells, no TCA cycle, no metabolic water production, no deuterium depleted metabolic water production. So when there is a signal, growth hormone binding to the receptor that stimulates the sodium hydrogen system and very easily can lift up the DH ratio to the threshold. And that's it. So this is how it works.
And now what about like deuterium depleted water in a natural setting? Is it something that you find somewhere in nature, or did we go wrong with the water? Or is it more diet, like you're saying? It's more about the food and the sugars and things of that nature.
On the Earth, the D level is different. So in the equatorial area, the ocean D level is 155 ppm. And when the clouds are appearing in the equatorial area and moving to the poles, they easily drop out the heavy water. So when we go to north, the D level of the raining water is decreasing, even decreasing when going up the hillside, and farther from the ocean, lower the deconcentration. So for example, in Edmonton, North Canada, it should be about 130, 135 ppm the D level. Going to the Himalaya, it again can be pretty low. In Caucasian, I brought 140 ppm D level. So there is some changes depending on where we are. The water we are producing is 125 ppm, 105 ppm, 85, 65, 45, and 25 ppm, where the human population is staying no water with 125 ppm. So it's below the natural level. But if you go to the north, you can get ice or snow with with lower than 125 ppm.
So how does the average person in a city like I'm here in Arizona or where you're at, how do we get just the best water? What's the best practical solution?
Arizona, you are in the east part of the hill, uh, and you are pretty. It should be about 140, 45 ppm, I estimate.
Right.
Yeah, which is good, and I guess the air condition or the air is not polluted, so it's a good place to live, I guess.
Interesting. And so just for people drinking water, because we obviously here in the city, you can't just drink the water coming out of the city water, but I've heard people talking about hydrogen water, and that's a new fad. Is that something where it's a sales tactic, or is that a thing to consider doing where you buy the machine that hydrates your, or it's, what is it, hydrogenated water? Is that right?
It's some so it's they are uh, electrolyze the water and that hydrogen gas present in that water.
Mm-hmm.
I am pretty sure that it has very significant effect. We never investigated, never run any study with that. Uh, when we electrolyze the water, the appearing hydrogen gas can be very depleted because there is a very strong differences. So very easily can uh, appear the H2 and very difficult to get the DU2 when these gas appearing.
Mm.
Uh, so it can be very deuterium depleted. And I also read a paper that it has a very strong antioxidant effect. The hydrogen gas very fast can penetrate in because very small and very easily can penetrate in the body. So I don't say that it no any effect on it. Uh, our aim is to get a cancer drug. To get a cancer drug, you need a very precise dosage. You have to be. You need a protocol. You need to know how much, what is the concentration, how frequently, how to modify. And I don't believe that we can do it with hydrogen gas. So and the other important factors of in an average body with a you are talking about pounds, 140 pounds. It's about 50, 80 pound water. In a human body, 60% is water. So to cause a significant changes in the D level, you need the volume. So we suggest the people who drinking DDW because having cancer or because the diabetes, they have to replace the daily water intake with deuterium depleted water. And that way we can day by day gradually decreasing the deconcentration.
And what about preventing cancer, drinking the right type of water so that we don't ever encounter it if we can? Is there a best, is that when you might consider drinking the deuterium depleted water before it ever happens? Or what do you think about that?
So we have a couple of papers, you have read a couple of them. So one of the paper we published that we followed 204 cancer patients. They were diagnosed, they were treated, and yet they were tumor-free because the therapy. And they consume deuterium depleted water. Cancer patients, unfortunately, there is very big chance to relapse and going back to the chemotherapy. So the question was whether following these people, we can prove it and show that we could prevent and reduce drastically the relapse rate. And the data shows that the cumulative follow-up time was over 1,000 years. So the average was for 5 years was followed all the 200 patients. And within that time period, we lost 13 people. 2 of them died 20 years after the cancer, so wasn't cancer related. And 8 people died who consumed DW, then they stopped drinking and never came back to repeat a cure every year. 8 of them died. But 156 people never relapsed. And that is a very big changes, which was expected that how high will be the relapse rate. So that means, and for healthy people, we recommend drinking 105 ppm or 125 ppm 3-4 months every year, every second year, every third year, depending on the risk. The elderly people we recommend more frequently. The young people, no smoking, not drinking, no stress, but no people living without stress. So they can drink every third year, and the elderly people more frequently can repeat it.
Interesting. And during those studies, were people changing their diet as well? Does it like a deuterium lowering diet, like the high fat diet?
Uh, I don't have any data for that. That would be very interesting to check
Hmm.
on a large population whether the incidence of the cancer is show any differences between the average population. I don't know
Mm-hmm.
any kind. I suppose this is what we started. So I think if we go back and we change the diet as it was 60 years ago, then the average D level would be lower, and that maybe would reduce the incidence of cancer.
And do you get a lot of pushback for your ideas and like censorship of any type or any type of issue where you are being fought for your ideas from the industry or from other scientists?
Uh, we are very good in science, I guess. So our first paper was published in 1993, and slowly but recently, exponentially, the paper coming out is increasing. So from Japan, China, uh, European countries, and United States, uh, more and more scientists is involved, and they are investigating. And the deuterium depleted water is not only for cancer. So there are papers that in a rat study that the long-term memory was improved. Uh, there are other studies, even we published with an aging. We could extend the lifetime of the Sonor habitus elegans. Uh, we are in Europe in a consortium investigating the effect of DW on the central nervous system, and hopefully very good results will coming out. And that study is supported by European Union almost with 1 million euros. So this is how we started. In one single cell, which size about 40 micrometer, can you imagine this 25th part of the 1 millimeter? And there is a 10 micrometer size of the nucleus where the DNA is. And that nucleus contains 1.8 meters length DNA. So can you imagine that a DNA like that is packaged into the nucleus which size 10 micrometer?
Amazing.
And it works. So how is it possible that so big information packaged into the nucleus with 25,000 genes, and that is regulated on a submolecular level? And another study we published, do you know that Bishop in 1982 published a paper that tyrosine kinase is an oncogene? That was a great discovery. And after that, everybody believed if we find a tyrosine kinase inhibitor, that will be a good cancer drug. There was one that was a Glivec, and the chronic CML, chronic myeloid leukemia, is extremely good, very good drug. But since that, there are hundreds of other tyrosine kinase inhibitor. They are using it. It caused some increase in the survival, but the cancer problem has not been solved. So the question is, how should we and how can we integrate into that gene system? So we investigated whether the D level can modify the gene expression. So we kept the lung cancer cell line in deuterium depleted media with 40 and 80 ppm, 150 as a normal, and 300 ppm as a deuterium enriched media. And we tested not one gene, we tested over 500 kinase and over 200 genes which are cancer-related genes. So the question was whether the expression and the activity of these genes will be modified by changing the D level. And we use that, it is called nanostring technology. So that way we can count one by one the number of the copy was appeared on the different genes. And the point was that 97% of the genes responded to the higher D level. What does it mean? We said when the growth hormone binds to the membrane and stimulate the sodium hydrogen, that increased the DH ratio. And that will turn on hundreds of kinase genes and hundreds of genes having role in cancer development.
Wow.
But when we are applying deuterium depleted water, we simultaneously will inhibit all the genes. So the cancer drug development is targeting one gene, applying deuterium depleted water, we stop all of them. And this is the reason that independently of cancer type, the deuterium depletion effective. We do not say that we can cure everybody, we can kill all the cancer cells, but that is a big chance for us to solve the so-called cancer problems.
That's incredible. And it seems like your work is starting to be very well received and more broadly distributed, and more people are teaming up to work with you to make this available to people, this knowledge.
Yeah, that was a very, very big difficulty for me to start that type of study because, do you know, the skepticism, they know everything and they know that stupid idea. So at the beginning to finance that research, we didn't got any fund. So we had to generate the revenue, we had to come out with a product with a cancer drug for veterinary use. It is on the product and we can cure the dogs and cats. And that was the reason that we could survive the last 30 years. Recently, I hope we are getting close to get big investors and start new clinical trials. And at the end, we go to the FDA and the EMA and got a registration for deuterium depleted water. And I do not believe that that will be the end of that development. I think that so we need to integrate deuterium depletion to the existing therapy. Because, for example, one of our last paper we published with glioblastoma. Do you know this is one type of brain cancer? Very, very poor prognosis. The people are operated, radiotherapy, temozolomide therapy. Unfortunately, they relapse and they die. So median survival time is about 10, 12 months. We published that 55 people was evaluated who consumed DW, and without any selection, the median survival time was 30 months, so get a threefold increase. But when we divided the patients into two groups, one group received the radiotherapy and several weeks or months later could start drinking DW. Then the median survival time was 20 months. But those lucky who together with the radiotherapy consumed DW, the median survival time was 47 months. So nobody can do that. But combining the radiotherapy with DW is an extremely good combination because we are triggering the radicals, the radiotherapy triggering the radicals, and that radicals kill the tumor. And that's it.
That's amazing. Yeah, I'm wondering how long it will take to implement this into the main stream's consciousness. It takes so long sometimes for knowledge to finally be accepted, and then there's usually
30 years.
incentive structures that prevent people
Yeah.
from wanting it as well. And I'm
Yeah.
curious what your thoughts are on that issue alone, just like the FDA and the food industry being bought and paid for by pharma. So then there's these like conflicts of interest where they're somewhat marketing and using propaganda to get people to eat high sugar foods in the schools. You know, the children are eating high
Yeah.
processed food. It's terrible for them. And the
Yeah.
information coming out is so the opposite, that says we should get these kids to eat healthy, non-processed foods, but there's a conflict of interest with incentivization structures that are fighting each other for it.
I think the real big problem is that if we see the price of the cancer therapy, which goes up, and the incidence is growing, so finally the society is not able to finance that whole healthcare system. So it's crucial to to minimize the cost, to increase the efficacy, save as much life as we can. So of course I understand, and I always say that from business side, uh, first, we are not against the pharma industry. Will be a new type of pharma industry which will use out that new type of approach, that new type of knowledge. And even the pharma industry already has using that they are deuterate a given drugs, because they recognize when they change the hydrogen for deuterium that the drug behaves differently, it lasts longer, and they can reduce the dosage and so on. So it's well known how important and how big impact can be if we modify the deuterium hydrogen ratio on the molecules. So I think we are facing with is a big challenge for the society, the increasing number of the cancer, even in the United States, I don't know, over 10% of the population is diabetic. Another 10%, I guess they do not know it, but they are close to become diabetes. It means they will be amputation, they became blind, their kidney system will not function. It's huge cost of the society. And I think we have to solve that. And we are facing with other problems with the global warming and all the other things. So if there is something which can fix the problem, we have to use it and fix it, because we are facing several other issues we have to solve.
Yeah. And also maybe even taking away the incentivization structure that's actually driving it in the first place, creating the problem, the food industry, and some of the issues that create the diabetes and the obesity epidemic that we're in. And there's a lot of people becoming more and more aware that the amount of profit that's being made to treat symptoms that are being caused by the same companies that own the food industry. So it's this really messy time where, Casey and Callie Means and other folks are bringing this to the surface and going to Congress and trying to fight the FDA and the food industry at large and big pharma. And it's not going well so far, but I'm wondering what's going to happen there, because yes, we want to stop the problem, but we also have to stop the front end issue, the incentive structure on the front end.
I, I, yeah, I understand clearly that uh, the motivation, unfortunately, is the money and
Hmm.
making profit. But integrating deuterium depletion into the pharma industry, that will make big profit. A living people always buy more drug than a dead one, and it's another a big advantage for the society if the people are healthy and eat more, they eat more food, and they work hard, they paying the tax. So I so it's hard to understand that who would be against that.
I agree. It's hard to even imagine that people wouldn't want to do the right thing, but
Yeah,
now it
yeah,
just in the last 4 to 5 years, it seems like people are becoming more aware that maybe it's not that everybody wants the right thing; they
yeah,
just want to
yeah,
profit,
yeah,
and
yeah. I
But yeah,
understand.
it's messy. Um, I was curious about your thoughts on blue light. Have you ever dove into some of that and what it does to the mitochondria and to the cellular level? Have you ever gotten into like what the screens have been doing to us as well for cancers and other ailments?
Yeah, I read that and I know that people use it. I never tested, and I so it's of course there are several factors which at the same time has impact on us.
Hmm.
The question is what is a crucial, what is which is dominant, and if we can find other factors which can stimulate and help our main focus, that's good. But unfortunately, we several times find that people combining DW with other parameters, and sometimes they destroy the efficacy of deuterium depletion. For example, taking high dose of antioxidant, that will diminish the efficacy of deuterium depleted water because the antioxidant catching the radicals, so finally they help the cancer cells to survive the DW therapy. And it's not easy to figure out which combining by which other components.
So, what do you think the best way now is that you guys use if someone were to have cancer, start the deuterium depleted water? What's the best way they should stop taking all the supplements at first, and you guys start to tell them which ones to take that support the
So
system?
what we know for sure, the antioxidant and selenium. These are had antioxidant effect. And the other parameter is do not take hot baths and sauna because the higher temperature also help to reduce the efficacy of DW. And we also say do not make intensive loading test. So no lack of oxygen, high physical activity, because again, that helps the cancer cells to survive the deuterium depletion.
And
These are so
this is while they have cancer, but not before.
uh, when someone got cancer drinking DW, do not do that.
Right.
This, of course, making exercise, sports, that's good. But when somebody got the cancer and going to drink DW, do not combine it with physical activity.
And what about if you're drinking deuterium depleted water as an average human for preventative reasons, or do you even advise that? And then combining that with like a high stress exercise and sauna, things like that, does that just counterbalance the effect of it, or is it just a good combination to be more robust?
So if several people, luckily more and more people recognize and drink it just because preventive purposes. But we have made a test that the athletes drinking DW, we can improve the mitochondria. After the loading, the lactic acid appear later. So people in general can drink it. But if somebody, the aim is to worrying about the cancer and they would like to do something to reduce the risk, in that case, I will recommend drink DW, no antioxidant, no hot bath for that for 3 months, and no active, intensive physical activity.
Interesting. So it usually takes a few months just to get the pH balance
Yeah,
right and to get the system switched over.
yeah, yeah.
Is there
This is a
contraindications to drinking deuterium depleted water on an everyday basis for the average person?
no, no.
No. So it's actually
On
better.
the other hand, we also do not recommend to drink it for the next 20 years DW because we can challenging the cancer cells when we changing the D level day by day. So somebody drinking continuously month by month DW, then a new D level will be in the body, and all the bad cells accommodate and they are happy with that new D level. So from that level they can start to grow. So we recommend that cure, uh, challenging the body, reducing the level for 3-4 months, then leave it.
Ah, that makes sense. What else can you share about your first or second book that you think the average person out there that's listening, like myself, can learn from you while you're speaking about these subjects, about deuterium depleted water and everything else?
So the very first book was published in 1999 or 2000. Uh, at that time, for example, I didn't have a good example for pancreatic cancer. At that time, we couldn't see any positive effects on pancreatic cancer. And then I changed the dosage and we recommended other deconcentration to the people having pancreatic cancer. And now we can get a threefold increase in median survival time with pancreatic cancer. And at the beginning, in the first 10 years, it was very limited, the DW, the amount and the deconcentration. So at the beginning, we could produce water with 100 ppm, later with 85. Then there was a time we could get 25, but at a very limited concentration. So it was very hectic. And since 2000, we are on the product with the Preventa. And then we have a new GMP facility to produce deuterium depleted water. So we are more accurate for what type of D level, depending on the cancer type, depending on the staging. And in the book, in the second book, I try to give a protocol how to combine it with the conventional therapy. So even I would recommend for the oncologist just to read it, and how before surgery it would be good if there are 2-3 weeks using DW. That would increase the operability of the cancer. I recommend always combine radiotherapy with DW. That extremely increase the efficacy of the radiotherapy. For hormone therapy, depending on prostate cancer or breast cancer, for example, the PSA. Do you know the PSA? It's a prostate-specific antigen. It's a very good marker whether there is a cancer in the body or not. And for example, if people are having high PSA as it's increasing, one way is go to the biopsy, receiving the hormone therapy, or start to drinking DW, checking the PSA, and it goes down. You don't need to go to biopsy. You can wait. We have a paper published with patients who the tumor was diagnosed in the prostate. The PSA level was higher. It was biopsy, and it was sure. And he refused receiving the hormone therapy and consume DW for 5, 6, 7 months, have a break. Then start again. For 12 or 13 years, we kept it. No any progression. There was a time when the tumor disappeared. Then he stopped drinking for 1.5 years. Then the tumor came back, started to drink again. So that way, and at the end, and this is the point, I recommended start to receive the hormone therapy because we couldn't stop the PSA, the increase of the PSA. But we saved 13 years, and now after receiving the hormone therapy, immediately drop the PSA, and after a couple of cycles, stop the hormone, drink the DW. In a normal case, patients diagnosed with prostate cancer, receiving the hormone therapy after 2-3 years became resistant, maybe a couple of years, and then they cannot stop the tumor growth. Here we can balance it and we can combine it, the hormone therapy. We also published a paper that combining the DW with the chemotherapy, that way we can reduce the dose of the chemotherapy and increase the efficacy. So how good could be when we reduce the toxicity of the chemotherapy because we do not need to use the same dose, but we even can increase the efficacy. So
that's amazing.
There are
we have
hundreds of ways to optimize and to get a much more better results as we can today.
Yeah, I'm curious how many oncologists, doctors now here, like we have Vincere cancer screeners here. We have the whole community here that's helping first responders. They do all of our cancer screenings. I'm wondering if they've ever come across your ideas, or the Mayo Clinic, these big institutions that are fighting cancer. Are they hip to your ideas? Are they on board at all with it yet, or where are we at with this?
Do you know, I wrote a letter to Mayo Clinic because they can support outsiders if they recognize that how good can be, and if they are behind you, that would be a great help for us to proceed and finding the right investors. So I managed it and I communicated, but till now they didn't came back and didn't say, okay, Gábor, we would like to support you. I regularly take parts on biomeeting and biopartnering and trying to communicate, sharing the knowledge. We have good connections, and this is the reason that more and more scientists finally is involved in that type of research. But I cannot say that companies or clinics with high reputation pushing our discovery and try to help to get more and more sharing that type of information.
And what's the communication like from them back to you when you write these letters or communicate these on these panels and whatnot?
What do you mean?
What do they say back to you when you write these letters? What is the response?
So so the focus is always the funding. So the pharma and the investors, and they are not brave enough to move forward, I guess. So they should recognize it. They are say, okay, it's risky to invest the money into that project, and the key opinion leader are not saying that this is the way we should move forward. And if are not familiar with the molecular biology but got the money, they ask somebody who should know it, and they listen to them. And if we cannot close it and do not get that they change their mind, then we are keep trying and keep trying.
Yeah, but that's frustrating. It's almost like more of a sales meeting than it is anything else. You're trying to convey what it is you have to offer, and it's a matter of pitching them in the right way and getting the investors to be
Yeah,
on board.
yeah, it's not easy.
What are you working on right now? Are you writing any new books, or do you have anything that you're focused on, or is it just trying to get this information forth at this point?
The the second book was published in 2020. It was published in China, in Japan, and you can buy it in English on the Amazon, the Deuterium Depletion. And now we are waiting for the Russian publication, and we are working on new papers. So we are going to publish all the data which is available. I try to find more research groups to work together and supporting the new research. But the key issue is because without FDA and EMA will not be drug. So and that require big money, and the focus is. So I asked the group finding investor for us. We are paying that these people hopefully will find the right investor to complete new clinical trials, and hopefully at the end we can register it Deuterium depletion as a new drug. So focus is to move forward and get the registration. Otherwise, so our water is, the price is high if you compare it to the normal water. But without the registration, the oncology cannot recommend, because this is not part of the therapy. And if we want that everybody get access to the deuterium depletion, it must be a drug. And that's I'm very happy with that. And we have to control it. We need the quality control. So this is the reason I do not believe that the food will be restricted the D level on the long term, because the pharma industry will protect themselves. And I also agree that it wouldn't be good when somebody got a tumor in the breast and go to the supermarket and buy some kind of water, drink it for how long time, because this is not the best way to treat people. We need the knowledge, we need the integration, we need to educate the oncologist, everybody to use it in a proper way. And on the long term, we believe that will be a deuterium depleted food category, and that should be good for healthy people just to reduce the incidence of cancer.
That makes sense. Yeah, that's what I'm gathering too, is that it seems like we can do a lot on the preventative side with the information that you're presenting too. And I'm thinking even that, like you said, the hydrogen infused water might be a good idea in the meantime.
Could be, could be,
Could be,
yeah.
but it's not fully proven yet, I guess. It just makes sense.
I say that, yeah, if somebody is working with that, invest and doing more research and prove it. So that's the
Yep.
way. So this is how I did. Of course, I was attacked hundreds times that how stupid idea to using DW, but that forced me to do more research and more data, and slowly we will win, I guess. I
Yeah.
hope.
Yeah, I hope you get your investors and I hope you can move this forward because it would save a lot of lives and prevent a lot of other issues and prolong a lot of
Yeah,
life too, it sounds like, really extend people's lives.
yeah,
So,
yeah, we are very confident with that.
anything
Mm.
else you want to share before you get going with the average person that's listening to you speak about your ideas?
I would say that everybody should find the right way to live. Unfortunately, people knows that this is harmful and they are doing. The life is very short, and it's very important to live the lives in a healthy condition, and it costs a lot when somebody is getting sick. So I would recommend follow the way. So control the body weight, control the diet, do the exercises, make the mind control, and try to be healthy and living on a healthy style. Because I have talked with thousands of cancer patients, and I know the situation, how difficult when somebody is facing with, okay, you've got cancer. And unfortunately, more than 50%, they are incurable at that time when they are diagnosed. So go to the doctors immediately when you see something is not okay, the symptoms appearing. People like to say, okay, my next day, my next month, this is not the reason of the cancer. Go and check it out. The earlier the cancer is recognized, the bigger the chance to be cured. So and and the people know that. The question is why they do not follow it.
Yeah, yeah, that's really good advice, and I'm sure you've seen so much. It's probably not easy for you to witness all of that suffering,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
you pretty
yeah.
much answered, I'm sure, the next question with what you just said because it was really nice and clear advice for people to take on. But I always ask people, if you were going to die today, what would you want to share with the world?
The cancer problem will be solved, and this is not the biggest problem. We have to solve the global warming, and the whole system is in a crisis, facing with very, very big crisis. So everybody should work on it to solve these problems. When I started, when I was young, the cancer was a big issue. Today, not the cancer is the big issue, even that 10 million people die every year in cancer. So we are facing with very, very difficult times. So everybody should know that, and changing lots of things to avoid the earth, and thinking about child and grandchild. So we should change a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot to change for sure. And just start paying attention more
Yeah,
and not being so distracted. It's much easier now than ever to just get distracted and to do
yeah,
what feels good temporarily, but it's time to start
yeah,
paying attention, I think.
yeah, yeah,
Where can
yeah.
people find your work if you want them to read your books or find your information? Where would you like people to find you? I'll put it in the show notes.
So the best to find a book on the Amazon, Deuterium Depletion, a new way to curing cancer. And on the hyd.hu website, which is a company website, people can find all the papers what we have published. On the ResearchGate site also can find all the papers, but just searching for deuterium depleted water for my name, luckily lots of people talking about deuterium depletion, sharing the knowledge, or their idea how to do it and what is the point. So people can learn it from the internet, what's going on with deuterium depletion.
Great. Yeah. Well, I look forward to sending people to your work, and I'll keep diving in myself. And I really appreciate your time today.
Thank you. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the episode. Be sure to subscribe to the show on Spotify, YouTube, and iTunes, and rate the show. I hope you enjoyed the episode.
What we call reality is in fact nothing more than a culturally sanctioned and linguistically reinforced hallucination.